Hunter, thanks for being here this morning, man.
Of course.
It's
Yeah.
awesome
Thank
to
you for
have you
having me.
on. We know you, but our audience may not know you. So in your own words, who's Hunter Gerhardt?
Oh, where do I start? So in the context of building, I'm a builder. I've been a builder for 10 years. I love it. I feel totally called to be in this position. I'm just so fulfilled every day. There are hard days, of course, I think like every industry, but knowing that, the passion is there, the drive is there, the will to be better every day is there. So off of those, key factors, I really feel like I belong here. Um, I've been a builder for 10 years. I started my first business right out of high school. I tested out of high school early, and went to an investor and said, "Hey, this is what my dad did. I'd love to get into it." Saw him, and the lifestyle that he provided for us when we were kids growing up, and seeing him as a watchdog on our campus and just the freedom to be there. And he was very present, took us to school every morning and picked us up in the afternoon. And we had a lake house growing up and all that kind of stuff. So as a business owner, I really got to see what that looked like from a kid's perspective.
Sure.
And so when, we found out we were pregnant, that was like, boom, okay, time to grow up. Let's get back into the business. So that was now 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Been running Gerhardt Construction ever since. We started a new business first quarter of this year called Monterey Ridge Custom Homes, where we just build spec homes and customs out in Parker and Wise County as well.
Very cool.
Gerhardt Construction is more curated towards your really high-end, kind of one-off deals, very custom, more of an artistic element involved. We do the kitchens and the bathrooms and stuff, just your basic refreshes too. But from a claim to fame, this is what we advertise perspective, you're getting your, $500,000 and up projects, $1 million projects, 10, 16,000 square foot additions, things of that nature, where, we get to kind of act as the liaison rather than just that builder 9 to 5, Monday to Friday approach, where this is all corporate business oriented.
Sure.
We are very good at investing ourselves in the personalities of the people that we work with. I also feel called in that regard. I can be very personable. I think that the industry is underrepresented when it comes to that. So that's another reason why I feel like I'm in a really good spot, because I can navigate the difficulties of, a plethora of different personalities between designers and how you guys work and your expectations. And then, those expectations being a little bit more fair than a client's and their version of reality and their walk of life and all that kind of stuff, what they fear, what they don't fear. And so, kind of getting into that, so we've been in business for 3 years. We're primarily Westlake, Southlake. We've ventured into Fort Worth. We have a project in Arlington, obviously, with you guys.
Right.
And then I think, God's going to take us where we want to go. And Grapevine, Flower Mound, I think that we're getting some phone calls up there too, as people are wanting that more sprawling acre to acre look.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, that's, generally what Gerhardt Construction is. Hunter Gerhardt's just a builder. I love it. I try to be as casual as I can, because I'd love to make some friends through, these circumstances, while remaining professional.
Yeah.
So that's me.
I think that's awesome. So was your father a builder as well?
Yeah, so he was a builder for 30 years in Palm Springs. So we moved to Austin in 2009. My dad did not move here with his business. He filed bankruptcy, went through the whole 2008 thing. He was more of a developer as we got closer to the 2008 crash. So he built spec homes in country clubs. He did some developments down in Rancho Mirage across the street from the Polo Grounds, if you're familiar with where the Coachella Music Festival is.
Mm-hmm.
He developed the neighborhoods kind of surrounding it.
Okay.
So a prominent figure in Palm Springs as we were growing up. And I knew I could I knew I could do it. I think I just had that mind, the architect, engineer, how do things work always. It didn't necessarily need to be related to building, but why does the wheel turn like, I mean, things
Yeah.
like that. I was always curious about that. And so I think it's kind of turned me into that, um, aficionado when it comes to managing a schedule and, understanding why from a fundamental level we do things the way we do things and being able to appropriately articulate those things to people that don't know. And, um, because that's just been my passion for so long,
Yeah.
is learning why and the justification behind why we do things,
Yeah.
you know?
I think also you mentioned just a moment ago, growing up around your dad and just him being a business owner and how much that kind of influenced you, like, hey,
Right.
I can do this too. I know for me in my own personal life, I had an opportunity when I was young to work in a restaurant that was privately owned. It was a member from our church in Spring, Texas. And I got to work in that restaurant. I got to be a line cook there. And I got to see like the blood, sweat, and tears that went
Mhm.
into owning a business. And I only got to see probably a small fraction of it. But it definitely changed my perspective, my approach to how you interact with people. Like maybe I want to own a business someday.
Mhm.
My family, my mom's side, they had a bakery in Minnesota, and I would hear stories from my mom of waking up at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning to go get things ready in the bakery for the morning's run. I think that influenced a lot of what we did. I know your dad was starting to get into that.
Yeah, he was starting like before like food trucks were a thing. He had like a food, it was like a trailer. It was barbecue. He made the best
Cool.
barbecue, like
That's
so
awesome.
good. And so anyways, yeah, he like started, it was called K&E, which is Kent and Elaine, my parents' smokehouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know,
Aw,
it's like all like
cute.
entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
it's like in our blood, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know.
So how much of that like carries forward into how you run your projects, how you operate your business today?
I think April just hit it on the head. I really think it is in your blood.
Yeah.
I don't think that, I mean, business ownership, especially in this world, is not for the faint of heart. I think you have to continuously remind yourself why you're doing this. Things move so fast in this world
Yeah.
that you're just getting it from all sides. You hear that very popular and probably growing more popular saying, when it rains, it pours,
Mm-hmm.
because in today's world, it tends to. And so seeing him, when I look back at it today, it feels like I'm looking back through a rose-colored lens.
Sure.
And I know not everything was good. I know he definitely had his difficulties, but I didn't ever question as a kid looking up at my dad, like, is this right for him?
Right.
Because his face sold it. Like,
Yeah.
this was his place.
Yeah.
And I think like that's the one thing that I want to bestow in my kids as they get older is, whether you end up like, whether I stay a business owner or not, I want him to try it. I want her to try it. Because who cares if you fail? You did it, and you did it to the best of your ability,
Right.
and I think that there's a lot to learn through it, and there's a lot to learn through the failure of it.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of business owners at one point start another business,
Mm-hmm.
whether the first one failed, because now they know how to set things up. And so, oh yeah, big time. Like my dad was, my biggest role model, my biggest cheerleader when I was growing up. I mean, he put us in sports, and we learned the dynamics of that and team play,
Mm-hmm.
but also, he bestowed good, solid values in us as individuals too, as we were growing up.
Yeah.
And I think more so through his actions, than, really saying things or preaching or any of that regard. It was just, you could just tell he was a man on a mission,
Yeah.
trying to provide ultimately for his family and live the kind of life that he wanted to live and work for it,
Yeah.
and provide the security for our whole family, and then some. So, From a secular approach, I want to provide that dynamic with my kids and having that lake house on the weekend and,
Sure.
the dirt bikes and the experiences and the ski trips and the vacations. And
Absolutely.
so that, I think more so to allow my kids to learn the variety that this world provides.
Yeah.
And then also to know that their reality isn't the only reality that needs to be taken into consideration. And I
Sure.
think through their upbringing, they'll see from me and my wife, that, as we start our businesses and take that whole walk, that there are more people that sit at the table than just, me or him or right.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think definitely as I've started this business, the biggest question that I continue to remind myself is like, how am I looking from the other end of the table?
Yeah.
And by nature, these clients really are the opposition, because they want to they're in this for themselves. It's very personal. This is their this is their house. This is their future. This is where they raise their kids. This is where, their family pet is, right? I mean, all the memories that they're going to create in this house, it's very personal. It leaves a lot of impact.
Yeah.
And from a builder, I'm in this for, a professional approach. But on top of that, like, there's layers to that where I need to also cater to that side.
Yeah.
And so the industry wants to naturally pin the homeowner versus the builder, because, I'm the doctor in the room that says, like, hey, this is the reality, right? Like, your dreams and fantasies are great, but we can accomplish this.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm always taking that approach of, as much of a buzzkill as it is, like, that's my job.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I don't want to set you up and say, oh my God, yeah, we can do that. And then you spend all this money and it fails.
Right.
Like, I got to kind of be that older, wiser sibling in this and say, hey, we've been down this road before. Let's
Sure.
approach it from this perspective and, move on. So
Yeah. Let's talk about your style of project management, because you have experience as a business owner. You grew up in a family that was a business owner family. So when it comes to home building and how you run your projects, what does that look like for you?
It's very tight. I think there's not a lot of leeway that I give myself, which I think is fundamental. Like, anyone that's looking for a builder needs to, the first character trait that I look for is someone that holds themselves to just a much higher level than the competition, for a multitude of reasons. I think it shows in more than one way, like the cleanliness of the job site, the tightness of the schedule, the appropriate communication style, the approachability in the contractor, all of these things, right? There's so many metrics that builders are holding themselves accountable to, and as long as they approve, they're fine.
Mm-hmm.
But you're negating probably the more important person in that mix, which is the client. And as long as they're happy, in my mind, I'll approach their job in a very unique way that's catered to them. Some clients that we have, like, that we share, they're great. They're easy. They don't require a whole lot. And some builders may come in and say, hey, I'll give you a fourth of the management style that I offered to this guy,
Mm-hmm.
because that's all you're asking for. But as a builder, we want to create a streamlined process for everyone. And, so whether they ask for it or not, that's the kind of management style they're going to get. So I think the approachability is a big one. The just good stewardship to the financials too. Like, we have a really big job in Westlake, and I know this guy has generational wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm the protector of this guy's wallet as well. Like, just because he wants this beautiful, lavish project doesn't mean we have to spend top dollar on every little thing. Like, there's still opportunities to value engineer
Mm-hmm.
in a $5 million home. So if this was my money, and I'm putting $5 million into this home, like I want that home to feel like a 6 or a 7 or an $8 million project while only costing 4 or 5, right? So that is something that we continuously look for and have to remind our trades, because our trades, as they are making less generally, like the window package makes what the window package makes. You know, some of these guys, their mentality is just to make as much as they can. Oh, I'll sell you the best product we can. Well, do we need that? Hey, let's take a few options to the client, let them pick just based off of the look, and then we can talk about how much they're going to spend. If they want that cheapest level that looks the best and the one that they've approved, great. Look at how much money you saved.
Right.
So there's a dynamic in that too, where whether the job is $100,000, where that might be a little bit more obvious, where you do have to be a little bit more budget oriented, or where the budget is $5 million, you still have to be, you know, trustworthy with the investment that the client is making.
Right.
I love the word stewardship. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. No, I agree with Hunter, because I think like there are so many beautiful materials and things out in the world that you could present to the client all day long. But like, you're absolutely right. Like, it is our job to educate the client on what's available and let them decide, and be a good steward of the funds for the project. And I wanted to add too, that you use a software that, like, I don't know, what is it called?
It's called BuildBook.
Okay, yeah. So we as a design team love that, because it's like all of the notes and all the information for the project, and we get updates like in our inbox on the project from Hunter of like what's going on, and I don't know, it's great.
BuildBook, and I can elaborate a little on that just because that's a selling point of ours too. BuildBook is a software, and they actually approached me when they were first starting. They're in San Diego. I think just run out of the guy's garage when we first signed up, and takes a spin on these big SEM programs where it's a little bit more, it's just a little clean cut, doesn't include some of these things that the client and the designers don't necessarily need to see or want to really see. It just takes the clutter out. And so it's great because I'm able to build a schedule online that these clients have an access to and you guys have an access to, and they can come in and take pictures on the program of certain aspects of the job. If we get cabinets delivered and they've got a clarifying question, they can take a picture of it, circle it on the app, and say, hey, just out of curiosity, is this what that's for? You know, hey, what's this plan on this? Things like that. And it, you know, I'm already answering that question is just so much easier for me because I can take their picture as an example and in my, you know, clarifying statement or anything like that. And so also, you know, you wouldn't believe the amount of text that we get after hours. It can be 10, 11, 12 o'clock. And when you're working, and when you're working for these very high performing top level CEOs, CMOs, CFOs, all these guys, they don't just stop at 5. Their minds go. They just go. And as a liaison, as I mentioned earlier, like I kind of have to be there all the time. And so to provide that like resource for them where they're trying to plan their next trip and what's going on at the house, they can jump on that schedule. And if they know that it's accurate, as long as we're keeping up with it, then, hey, I don't even need to necessarily get that text, right? Or they can add it in the program and I'll get a ping in my email and I can look at it when I'm walking the job the next day.
It sounds like it's a really great way to stay proactive throughout a project, answer questions before they're asked sometimes, and when they do come up, it's a solid communication between client, builder, and designer.
For sure. Proactivity is huge. And I think clients at all levels want to see proactivity. They want to know that you, from a fundamental level, understand the ins and outs of everything about their project. They don't want to be the ones to bring up any bit of surprising information. They want you to know everything. And in some aspects, that's hard to attain. In other aspects, it's really easy. And I've found as long as in those attainable aspects, you are consistently, those unattainable areas of, you know, not understanding portions of like what's behind a wall, you know, they're accepted better when you have been better in other areas where you can control. Because as long as you can articulate in more ways than one that you know what you're doing, generally the trust is there.
So a fun question for you. what percentage of projects actually goes exactly as planned? I know it's
A big old
tongue in cheek.
flat 0% with the bold and underline 0. So,
Yeah.
but I would say in most areas, better. I think the outcome is better than what people expect. 0% sounds bad, but when you really take it into consideration, it's fun. Like, I mean, getting into these projects and like in a house of our Arlington size project, in a house like that, like just there's so much variety. There's so many things that you get to come across, cool pictures from the previous client, like I mean, stuff up in the attic, old material that we get to salvage and turn it into something. I mean, that applies to that question, right? Like we would have never taken that into consideration when we were sitting at a round table putting together this whole thing. So there's a lot of fun in that too. Like, and I think if that's your outlook, then you are in for a really good experience.
Yeah. You have to be able to pivot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because as long and gruesome as this road really is, like, I mean, it's all in how you look at it. I think that, to put it into layman's terms, when you're driving on top of like the Rocky Mountains, it's a dangerous road and there's a lot at stake and you're terrified, but it's beautiful along the way, right?
Yeah.
And I think that as long as you can kind of stop and get out at those lookout points and remember where you came from, your starting point, where you're at, keeping that clear vision of where you're going, generally you're going to have a really good time, along the way.
I think perspective is a huge part of that. I know for April and I, a growth mindset, always looking at the opportunity to learn, to get better, being proactive and thinking about how do we do things ahead of time that are going to, make projects run smoothly.
Right.
I think that's a huge element there. And I know for us, it's one of the reasons, like this Arlington project that we're getting to work on together, I think it's been part of the success of that project. Like you said, it is a long process. Nothing is ever going to go exactly as planned, but having a team, like a builder, a designer, client that is all looking at things through the lens of when problems come up, we've got a solid team that can solve for it.
Right.
I think it's huge.
We definitely act as that barrier, that safety net for the client, because the client, everyone starts off asking themselves, is this something if I'm capable of, right? As a tech guy, can I remodel my kitchen? Well, no, I can't. So I need a professional. Well, who do I call first? Well, I know I need a builder and it would be nice to have a designer, but let's just call one of these two and see where it goes. And I think as long as you can reinforce that you're needed, then you really are that last line of defense safety net for the client where, you have that opportunity to, instill that trust.
Sure.
Not just with the position that you have, but also, bestowing that trust and knowing that the client like actually made the right decision to bring a professional in on this job too. I think there's a saying that my dad used to say all the time when he had a client that was all up in arms or freaking out about something that they find, something small, right? You got a water damage behind the master shower when you rip out the wall and all, oh my God, we're freaking out. It looks like termite damage, and it's like, homeowner, read my face. Do I look worried?
Yeah.
No, I don't. Okay, well, it's not something to worry about.
Yeah.
It's really not. And this is why.
Yeah.
Because we see this all the time, number one. Number two, this is a 40-year-old house, right? Surely we knew stuff was going to be behind these walls, right? And this is how we fix it. This is the technology that we have at our disposal to fix it. This is the type of material, or we've run into this before, all that kind of stuff. Oh, okay, yeah, okay, yeah, it seems pretty simple. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Back to my 9 to 5, whatever, right? Like mine's off of it, moved on, ready to go into the weekend. And rather than having to freak out about doing all this research because you found termites in your walls.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's the value that a home builder can bring to a client. A good one is being able to address those problems when they come up and have a solution ready.
Right.
And I think that reinforces trust. I know we experience that as well from a design perspective. There's things that come up that stock all of a sudden went out on something that just like it was out of our control. And just being able to say, hey, we have to pivot here where we've made some reselections. These are both great options as well.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? And then it's less of the focus is taken off of the problem itself, and it's back on what's the solution? How do we move forward? I think that establishes trust and confidence for the client, and I think also contributes to their overall experience in a project, because these are long projects. When they get to the end of it and they look back, there may have been these things that we had to solve for, but ideally at the end of it, they're like, overall, this was great. Like I could trust them with my home, with my wallet, and they delivered an exceptional experience.
I agree. And that's the big thing is if you can provide a service where the client that had just gone through 11 months of hell can say that, you're in the right business. You're in the right position for sure.
Yeah.
Because it's difficult, right? You're dealing with a lot of emotion. As I mentioned, this is their home. And as builders, we have a very unique business where we might be one of the few businesses on the face of the planet that has to deal with people in their personal, intimate setting.
Sure.
They don't have to be professional.
Yeah.
They don't. As much as we would love them to, they don't.
Yeah.
It's their home. They can text us at 11 o'clock at night. There should be no rebuttal to that because this is their home. This is sacred to them.
Yeah.
Because when they get in that car and pull out of that garage every morning, they are leaving their home base. They're leaving their safety zone. And it's got to remain that way. And so a good, strong family unit is going to operate under the mentality of it's our family versus the world.
Sure.
And if you could be a candidate that's adopted into that because you really do protect them, then you've already made this journey a whole lot easier. And I think from a generational approach, you're seeing builders now, me included, that want to provide that. They really want to remove the veil of that client home builder legacy experience where, as the builder, I'm entitled to be difficult to get a hold of. I'm entitled to, not responding to emails or texts or being disorganized or, all this kind, because that's what's normal, right? And it's a terrible mentality to have adopted, but it's what the old school guys operate as. And so as these newer builders come in that have kind of grown up in this customer service oriented world, they want to provide something better than the competition. Customer service is number one. It has to be. And so if as builders, like for me, my biggest struggle when I was learning this industry was, to allow them an outlet to get what they have on their chest off, be a counselor in a certain aspect.
Sure.
Be a babysitter in another aspect, and also be a builder in another, right? Like you're managing all of these very difficult dynamics where people have to go to school to get a license to do all under one roof.
A lot of personalities.
Right.
The personalities is what's interesting.
And so when I have people that call me all the time to generally remodel contractors that are trying to get into the industry, want some sort of mentor or anything like that, they'll call me and say, after some big dispute with a client, they're like, I told them this. Generally, I will tell them, you just need to eat it, be professional, apologize, whether you agree with it or not, bite your tongue and validate them for sure. As long as they're acting professional and as long as they're acting like an adult, I guess.
Sure.
Then take it and apologize, say you'll work on it, and move on. And just be that like cool and calm presence in the set of circumstances, and don't be that reactive person in this mix, because I think, that's going to get you better and closer to your goal
Sure.
than engaging in this feedback.
Yeah. I think that solution oriented mindset, again, it's just like, yeah, we're gonna solve for this, and we've got some options for you to think about, and we're gonna fix it. We're gonna make it right. We're gonna keep going.
I agree. I think knowing that someone is going to, operate off your best interest too is important.
Yeah.
And just continuously be reminded of that.
Yeah. With the relationship between a designer and a builder, I'd love to talk about the Arlington project if y'all want to, but from a client's perspective, looking at, hey, I've got a home builder, like you said earlier, I'd love to hire a designer to come on as well. What should a client be thinking about or looking to the builder to kind of navigate as they work with a designer? What makes a successful relationship between a designer and a builder that's going to make the client's experience great?
I think the willingness for accountability is number one. Mistakes happen all the time. And I think maintaining that casual approach of doing this professionally, but being okay with saying, yeah, this was our mistake. We need to make this better and just move on.
Mm-hmm.
As long as if you can find a designer that's a team player, such as yourself, you're going to have just the return on investment on that is going to be huge. I think you guys play a very unique role in the mix where you really can be the mediator between the builder and the client. Builders generally are rough around the edges, not all the time, probably less now than previous, but they really can be. And it's very difficult to get all the things that is going through their mind understood by someone who has no idea what you're even talking about.
Sure.
And so I think you guys know a lot of the building, right? And so if I'm able to articulate in those crazy, unorganized, straight off the chest approach, and then you can take that and like clean it up and deliver it to the client, you guys are representing me a lot better than I can even represent myself. And so, and also knowing that if you're, from the client's perspective, if you're getting feedback from more than one person that is saying the same thing, generally it's easier to digest.
Sure.
So, if you or I are saying, well, cabinets are installed like this, right? And the client says, well, I've experienced them being installed like this. Well, if we're both saying the same thing and we've got our reasonings behind it, more likely than not, they'll say, okay, I understand. Let's move forward. Yeah. So, and it goes for problems too, miscommunications, missed expectations, all that kind of stuff. You guys are really good at kind of bringing both sides of the party back to the table to sit down and talk about it. Because the nature of your business is to understand these people personally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mine isn't necessarily. It's an added layer, and
Sure.
I think it's a good idea for builders to really understand who they're working with. That's why generally we do personality tests. But you guys, that's your business, and so your mentality coming in is to understand, the hot buttons of your client and what their expectations are on a personal level. And then also be able to articulate and provide those on the tail end.
Yeah.
And so when it just even getting back to the budget example, well, you could pick a beautiful tile. You could pick 3 beautiful tiles that are flown from across the world and provide the look that the client is wanting. But we all know that you can provide that same look without having to fly a tile from the other side of the planet. It's not that tile, it's the look. And that you can accomplish that look in more ways than one.
Sure.
And so I think continuously being reminded that you're in good hands, is important. And I think you are with a designer for sure.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that we try to do when we have the opportunity to work with builders is not just bring value to the client. I mean, that's kind of everyone expects that, and there's ways to do that really well, but also we look at it as a team,
we want to make your life easier,
right?
which is why like we developed that finish and material schedule that
Yeah,
you've got to
which
see.
is huge. Yes.
Yeah.
And that the growth is rare in this industry, even from a designer's perspective, because again, that builder is kind of the poor stepchild in the mix, right? Like, why put together this big package of material and labor if we know the builder's not going to look at it? Why? I mean, why?
Right.
And you kind of know these builders, if they are and if they aren't. Like, I'm a builder that is, and so you've provided that for me. So it's hard to adjust your business model to cater to these very different personalities and
You're
builders.
so right.
Yeah.
It's so true. 'Cause
yeah.
we'll get like you value that level of detail and like us documenting all the selections in one location with pictures and links and tile layouts. I mean, all the things. And then we do have other builders that we have worked with in the past, and they're like, I just need like a Word document. Like,
Yeah.
please don't spend time on that.
Yeah.
And it's like, but this is our process. So it's hard. Like, it's like, okay, we can do that, but it'd be better if you would just look at this other document, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
So you're totally right. Like, it just depends on who you're working with. And for us, we do have a process, but I do feel like sometimes we have to pivot that process depending on who we're working with,
Right.
because we have to adopt their style as well of how they like to execute a project.
Yeah. I think better organization and being held accountable to that it's a non-negotiable. It seems like such a blanket, obvious statement, but I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, builders, I've heard it that they just, oh no, this is the way I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Keep your paper, and that's it, because they print everything out. They keep it on the dash of their truck. It's a mess when they pull up to the job. It's a terrible representation of you guys. It looks like they just rolled out of bed, and that's like just how they build these houses, and they build beautiful products. And if you're okay with that, I mean, you're okay with that.
Yeah.
But we want to be a good steward of you guys too, and not just the client. And I know you guys work hard for your image. I know designers typically are very front-facing, customer-facing business models. And so if I'm going to be introduced to your builder, like, you got to know I'm going to come in and wear a collar and tuck my shirt in. And I mean, I'm not going to just take that for granted, right? I'm going to represent you guys well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think from for listeners who are looking to find a home builder and a design team, I think hopefully what they're hearing is just the value of having a build and design team that's firing on all cylinders, that knows how to communicate back and forth. Because ultimately, like, if our communication is good, if we're delivering a solid finish and material schedule, and you're like, this is great, this helps my team, and we're just working well together, ultimately it benefits the customer, the client, and it just kind of reinforces that trust at the end of the project of like, wow, I was in really good hands. And I think everyone generally is interested in bringing value to the client and to the folks they're working with. I think that's when the attention is on that. I think for clients, and they can vet that in a builder or designer, they're going to experience a successful project.
Right. The hard sell that we have is not everyone remodels their house every year. Most of the time it's like a once in a lifetime endeavor. Sure. But I've asked clients in the past that have opted not to use an interior designer, if on the tail end, if they've regretted that decision, and every single time it's been yes. Because I can't do my job if I don't have our selections, right? Well, they can't do their job if they're picking their selections.
Yeah.
And it's so nice to be able to say, hey, April, hey, Adam, Hunter needs floor tile, or whatever, and working out the dynamic of that, and because some jobs aren't like, hey, here's your packet in the front of the job. It's, hey, we're going to kind of just go room by room and figure it out as we go. And that's fine. That's just the way the client has opted in to do this. Usually it's, hey, we'll start small with the interior design. Don't know exactly how much we want to do or spend. And then the process goes really well. And they're like, well, let's just keep going. Right. And so it's like this ever changing job.
Right.
And to be able from a from a consumer standpoint, to be able to just pass that responsibility on, check that box on their mental list and move on with their day, go pick up their kids from school, be present in the soccer games, volleyball games, all that kind of stuff, rather than having to be on line looking for tile as their whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's so nice. You don't get those hours back.
Right.
And I think that people take that for granted until they experience it. It's night and day. And also, just from a builder standpoint too, there are builders out there, us included this year, where we will not take jobs without interior designers. We just won't, because we're in a position where we're doing such high-end stuff that, the world really is their oyster. They could pick anything from anything. And so then we end up being the designer. Says, hey, do you like this? Do you think this is a good idea? And I'm like, yes. Yeah. And I'm getting talked to. I'm responding to this client, and then the tile guys are right next to me asking me questions, and I'm like here and not, because that's my job. I can't turn that off. I can't turn the phone calls that I get off as I'm trying to respond to email about all these different selections.
Yeah.
And so I get a phone call and be there mentally, and then it'll take me like a day or two to get back into that zone of like picturing the finish out of these rooms.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky. Like, I have that vision.
Yeah.
You do. You're good at that.
I
You're
can
really
pick
good.
that stuff. Like, I can see it clear as day, and I know that that's a terrible selection for this, or that's a really good selection for this, or I think we could do this, and this is a way to save money, all that kind of stuff. And I probably got that more from my mom, because she was kind of the interior designer for my dad's houses. And I would say, just generally, like, if I could pass that information on, if I could pass that responsibility on to a designer, like, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
My job, I'm able to focus on the things that actually matter, like shutting the water off before we demo.
Yeah.
Things like that, right? Like, that's such a little thing, but holy crap, it could make such a difference on a job. Or turning the lights off, locking the doors. Like, theft is running rampant in the world today. And if you don't lock the door just one day, and you're building this huge house in a good part of town, well, these guys venture off and they'll find. So, I mean, you slip up once and your tile that you've just got imported is gone.
Yeah.
Your $100 square foot stuff. So I have to protect my mental. Like, when the job is going, and I have to think about the next 3, 4, 5 weeks, like, and I cannot be taken away from that. So if I have to divert my attention from that and talk about selections and countertop edges and how, like, the functionality of the cabinets and why we need to make a drawer stack here versus a door there, things like that, I get lost.
Yeah.
It consumes me. So for sure, designers are an absolute must.
Yeah.
And honestly, designers are a must even before these clients purchase these homes too. That's I think a common misconception is like, hey, we've gotten into this house, it's terrible, now we need to hire a designer. Well, take us along with you.
Right.
For one, would love to be a part of the buying process, because I have that vision, because you guys have that vision. They're paying you for that vision.
Right.
And so, to walk into this prospective house that they're wanting to buy, and to walk through how much, like, hey, give us a ballpark, like, how much you think we really need to, like, put aside to make this the best version for our family.
Right.
We would love to be in that position.
Yeah. It's that proactive approach.
Right. Realtors call us all the time. I mean, we did that earlier this week, where a realtor calls and says, hey, I got this client and they're wanting to know if they can add a mother-in-law suite downstairs. They've got this really funky wing that looks funky and super unuseful. I don't know why the previous homeowner did this. Can you walk it with us? And the client or the realtor said maybe 6 words through the entire meeting, because I was like, hi, I'm Hunter, let's walk through this real quick. Oh, I'll get up in the attic, I'll check for load bearing, I'll check for all the reasons you can't accomplish what you're wanting to accomplish.
Yeah.
And then we'll use that as our backdrop, and then let's walk into hey, how do we find a solution approach? Okay, well, you can't accomplish that, but look, we can do this. We can put a post there. We can put a partition in the room there. This could be the X room. This could, things like that. And you can accomplish what you're trying to without actually really getting what you're wanting.
Yeah.
But you're getting the same feel and functionality of the space.
Yeah.
So that is so important. I would love to be brought in to the buying process, with alongside designers where you really take a step back and say, what do I want? Right. How do I accomplish that? Well, when you buy a house, you're like stuck to that house. And you could accomplish what you're wanting to, but who knows, maybe the house that's half the price could have been the better end for you guys, and you could put double the money into the budget and gotten everything you wanted.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think it's like having your subject matter expert along with you. Like you're going to have your builder who's, an expert in this particular field, in this area, and having a designer who is, an expert in that respective field. I think having that team together really allows them to be experts at what they do, and you get a better result of it.
Right.
And speaking of expert, you switching gears here, you're a gifted photographer, man. Like I saw your stuff recently from, I think, a trip y'all took. And I was like, man, we just had Sarah Linden in here for our last episode, who does our photography for our sites. I think they'll probably meet her with Arlington.
Very talented. Very talented.
I was looking at your stuff. I was like, man, I didn't know that you liked to photograph stuff.
To be honest, I didn't either. It was like a guilty pleasure. I think I stayed up too late one night, and got onto Instagram Reels and saw like film photography. I was like, that looks really cool. The question that I asked myself probably before the 2:00 time frame was like, how, and I've been asking myself since the beginning of starting this business, is like, how can I post some of these like progress photos on my Instagram and Facebook and stuff without it looking just by nature adolescent, where it's from an iPhone.
Sure.
It's a little off kilter. You've got a large, like a majority of the shot is stuff that you're not really even trying to capture, but it's just the aspect ratio that makes it funky.
Yeah.
How can I highlight details of like the quality that we can provide while also showing a little bit of context of the job? And with our Arlington project, it's very that Mediterranean kind of French chateau, Italian countryside style. And so the arches like photograph very well from like a film perspective. And so it was kind of like an idea of posting those very authentic progress photos of the job that tells a story.
Yeah.
And I think the iPhone does great for what its intended use is, but I want to provide a story of a start and finish point of this job, right?
Yeah.
I want to capture the blood, sweat, and tears of this process, but also shine a positive light on it, where it's not just me over the tile guys he's laying tile. It's, a little bit of a story about him and, how he got into this, or how long he's been working for me, or like where his craft started.
Yeah.
And having this really cool, authentic picture to go with it, I think captures the audience, right?
Yeah.
And so, it was something that I've picked up recently. The pictures from Mexico are really cool. And the architecture there is stunning, of course.
Yeah.
And just the architecture alone tells a story.
Sure.
And so I'm excited to kind of get into that a little bit more and take some of these progress photos and after shots too, in comparison to Sarah's. And she's going to have the beautiful shots that show the nice tile lines and the nice straight edges and the cleanliness of the job and the articulate nature of everything and how everything's been curated and perfectly crafted to sit a certain way and look a certain way. But then I'm going to be able to like, kind of capture that story a little bit. Right.
Yeah.
So I think the story gets lost, right? Like, we've just demoed a house that's been standing for 30 years and I want to be a good steward, not just for the family that I work for, but also like the materials provided to build this thing in the first place.
Yeah.
And so like, we donate all of our appliances that we don't get used, like to Salvation Army, or we're in collaboration with a junk removal company that donates straight to Salvation Army. So all the cabinets, the light fixtures, the countertops, anything salvageable just gets donated to
Awesome.
them and Habitat for Humanity. And I mean, there's a calling for that for sure.
Yeah.
To demo and just destroy and throw away and let it end up in a dump, I feel like it's such a missed opportunity to be a good steward of God's materials.
Yeah.
And also there's someone worked hard to build those and pay for those.
Right.
And so to just take it and throw it away, I mean, in this Arlington project, all of it was still solid wood, walnut, beautiful cabinetry, quartz material. I mean, the light fixtures were all patinaed out and original and just incredible stuff.
Yeah.
And to throw that stuff away would just be like, oh my God, like people's hair would be set on fire. They saw, so that, and then, so that's the kind of the story aspect that we want to capture. Just the depth of like how much we care about these jobs is there and continuously reminded of as we post, on our Instagram and social. So, but anyways, photography is really exciting.
That's awesome. Well, you've done a great job telling your story. I appreciate your time this morning, Hunter. And for our listeners who are looking to do a big reno or they're looking for a home builder, how should they get in touch with you if they want to work with you?
Well, we're online, GerhardtConstruction.com. I would say don't wait. If you even have the idea, I would say let us even introduce you to the realtor that's going to list and find you property, because like we're even connected in that world. All of our worlds combined, like from designers to builders to remodel contractors to realtors, we all commingle. And so we know the representation that's going to get you, what you're looking for. But then if we know the realtor and have that open avenue, like we can, as we meet you and learn you, we can take that and read between the lines and say, hey, this is kind of the finish out. This is the kind of client. This is their style. This is the lifestyle that they're looking to achieve. Let's look in these areas of town. Like, so we really can, from an overarching perspective, take care of all aspects: real estate, building, design, selling, all that kind of stuff. So
awesome.
Let us kind of bridge that gap. GerhardtConstruction.com. You can find us online, call us, send us an email, find us on Instagram, usually in collaboration with you guys.
Awesome. Well, we'll put that in the show notes. Thanks, Hunter.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank
Hunter.
you.